Hey everybody, I'm Jake. And I just want to kind of introduce myself and kind of explain to you what the purpose of this channel is going to be. Now, I've always been infatuated with history for as long as I can remember. Not just like names and dates and things like that, but the mysteries, the clues, the story hiding between the lines. I grew up watching Indiana Jones, and quite frankly, for as long as I can remember, I wanted to be Indiana Jones, dreaming of chasing and discovering lost treasures and hidden mysteries and everything of that sort. I was absolutely obsessed. And then I grew up, and that's not what I became. But then even as an adult, when the new Indiana Jones shows came out or National Treasure, every time something like that would come out, I would be infatuated. It would remind me of when I was a kid, and it would remind me that how much I love that. Now, I never stopped loving history. I always have been interested in history and mysteries, and like I said, not names and dates, but I like those mysteries, those what ifs. I kind of like are there lost civilizations? Are there these conspiracies? No, I wouldn't ever consider myself like a pseudo-scientist or a pseudo-archaeologist or anything like that. I just have the desire to want to believe those things, but I just find them interesting. I like the Graham Hancocks of the world. Don't always agree with everything they say, but I just find it fascinating and interesting. And then I remember a couple of years ago when I first heard of Forrest Fenn and the Forrest Fenn treasure. And I became kind of infatuated with it. And if you're not familiar with the Forrest Fenn situation, Forrest Fenn was I don't remember if he was a treasure hunter. I think he went after treasures, but he owned a museum and dealt in art and jewels and treasures and things like that. And I think New Mexico. And at some point, he decided to build this treasure of things that he's collected and things over in the past and bury it. Well, I guess I don't know if I could say bury it, but hide it. And then he wrote a book, and the book was The Thrill of the Chase. And it was basically a memoir of his life. And he was a very interesting guy. And I think when I read the story, they had said something to the effect of, he took it to a bookstore and said he made a memoir of his life. But nobody would want to read it. So he put something in there that would make them want to read it. And what it was this poem that if you deciphered the poem, it would lead you to where the treasure was hidden. And if you found the treasure was yours. Fascinating, right? And I remember when I first heard about it, it had already been around for years. And I remember going and trying to find the book, but I couldn't find it anywhere other than people selling it used for like $150. And then I realized that you didn't need to own the book, that you can get the clues online. The poem was online. So, I would read the poem and I would try to make my thoughts on it and things like that. But, at the time, upper 30s, early 40s, full-time job, 3 kids, I didn't have time to travel across the country and look for this treasure. But I was infatuated with it. And then I remember in 2020, somebody found it. It was funny because even though I never actually went and looked for it, I was disappointed. I was disappointed because, I still had that thought in my head that, God, I wanted to be the one that found it. And then just a couple of weeks ago, I remember seeing this something on Netflix called, Gold and Greed, the Forrest Fenn treasure. And, I really wasn't interested in it. As I was telling my kids about it, they already found it. And they said, well, I'm kind of sour about it. I'm not really going to watch it. And then a couple days ago, I had nothing going on, and I saw it as a suggestion on Netflix. So I just kind of looked at it, saw that it had 3 episodes. And so I went ahead and watched it. And it was very interesting. And if you haven't seen this show, I suggest that you do see it. But it basically follows maybe 4 or 5 different people across the country who were searching for it. and how they deciphered the clues and what places they thought it was at and things like that. And what was funny is, like I said, I obviously knew that it was found, but I didn't know who found it. And so as I'm watching it, I'm assuming that it's one of these people that they're showing that found it. And as I'm watching it, there was one person in particular that I thought that this is probably the guy that finds it. And it had something to do with something he had said in the first episode. And one of the things that he had said in that first episode was something to the effect of that he had put clues up for this episode because he wants to re-hide the treasure if he finds it. So I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And then as I continued to watch the show, and what I realized was he wasn't the one that found it. In fact, none of the people that they were following was the one that found it. And so then they eventually showed the guy that did find it, and he'd auctioned it off. And so the guy that I thought was the one that might find it was this Justin Posey. I thought he was the one that found it. And, they show some stuff about, once they found out that it was found, that he went ahead and he kind of went back and he started checking to see where it was and following his footsteps. And by the sounds of it on the show, he was in the right area, that his clues were right. He just didn't find it. He missed it. And, some things happened to him. He lost his brother in the process and things like that. So it became very important to him. And so when the guy that does find it, after he finds it, he decides to auction the treasure off. And the Justin Posey goes, and he was going to make a bid on it. In fact, he said he did make a bid on it, but he did not win it. And so how the show ends is with Justin Posey saying that he's decided to put this treasure together, and he hid his treasure. And you see something in the show that, he was a collector. He found things in the past. He had a lot of valuable things. So he put together a treasure, and he hid it. And so as I'm reading to this, I'm like, whoa, okay, that's interesting. And so I'm kind of paying attention to it, and it sounds like as soon as the show's over and he does this video talking about it, and he talks about the clues that are in the show, I immediately look it up. I go online, Justin Posey treasure, and then I see that there's a book, and I see that he's got a site. And so my understanding is he hid it sometime in 2022, and then he wrote a book. He wrote a book called Beyond the Map's Edge, and he had this website, and he released the book in conjunction with the release of the show. Genius, right? And so I became infatuated. I became absolutely infatuated. And unlike the Forrest Fenn situation where, I was years behind, I feel like I'm right at the beginning of this one. And so what I've decided to do is I've decided to jump right into my old hopes of being Indiana Jones, and I've gone all in. I went ahead and I've bought the book. I'm trying to decipher the clues. I'm going to find this treasure. I'm going to find the Justin Posey treasure and fulfill my dreams from my childhood. And at the same time, like I said, I'm still going to be into history. I'm still going to be into all that kind of stuff. And some of this channel is going to be about history and mysteries and things like that. And the other, what's going to be my journey of finding this treasure. So if you like that kind of thing, if you're into history, if you're into treasure hunts and mysteries and things like that, and want to follow along on my journey, go ahead and subscribe and follow me along my journey. Let's see how much fun we can have, and let's see if we can go find this treasure. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you along the way.